Okay, okay. We're back, we're back. This is chapter 12. Um, the keys to Freemasonry in secret chambers. No, in other chambers. So, if I'm not, I know that's what it is, but I know it has like a subtitle in there. So anyway, this is about Freemasonry and exposing it. This is not about promoting it, but inside of this, you will learn who are the Masons and what they are doing. You know what I mean? And so for as in the urban community, we see the destruction, we see the gangs, we just see the gangs. That's really what they give us. You know what I mean? So we see this system, and sure we'll have the knowledge guys and all of that, but they all inside of that same system, right? So even when we see the religious movements and all of that, understand that these are all a part of this new design, right? And the new design is just basically taking Christianity out the picture, right? By all means necessary, right? So oh, by the way, um this is Street Skelzy. This is my book, Knock 'em Out the Box. You can check it out. It's about two brothers on opposite sides of the law who must team up in order to find their father's killers and killers, right? The older brother is attempting, who's the New York City detective, is attempting to keep his brother out of harm's way because he's a hothead and he knows that he will go, and handle this business before the police are allowed to handle their job. So it's a fast paced book. Sorry if I'm not saying it as fast paced as it is, you know what I mean? But it's a very fast paced book running throughout the five boroughs, as long as, the tri state area, in search of clues in order to find, who's responsible for their father's death. All right. You know what I'm saying? Like I said, don't forget to hit that like button, that subscribe, and that notification either. And please, man, hey, leave a comment. Let me know that you watch it. It could be anything. I don't really care. You know what I mean? Just, drop by. Just say something. And like I said, this is my cup, Old York Gritty on one side. And on the other, it's I Gritty New York, and to the 200 subscriber, you get the book, and you also get the cup, and we doing this all the way up to our 10,000 subscriber. So every 200th subscriber is eligible for both, not one but both. All right, so let's go right here. We up to chapter 12. How the Methodist Church dealt with masonry and masons in former days. Read it, ye degenerate race. We will now quote from the British Methodist magazine from 1813, page 66 to 71. The author of this faithful and startling alarm from Jacob Stanley, an eminent minister in the Wesleyan Methodist Church, England. He was then contemporarily competitively young. He rose to the highest position in the church, that of president. It will be seen that in those days the press, as well as the pulpit of the church, gave the alarm. There were giants in these days, but alas, they have all passed away and are to a great extent succeeded by a race of felicitous creatures who are afraid to utter a whisper against the hedonist practices which were then so faithfully exposed and rebuked both by other pulpits and presses. Where shall we wander now to find the successors they left behind? The faithful whom we seek in vain are many-ish from the sons of men. So much so that both pulpit and press are now silent, while the same heathenish practices are everywhere apparent in the church as well as out of it. So we know that the press was corrupt from even back then. So when you think that there wasn't a corrupt news system, you're sadly mistaken. They always worked with the system. The church as well as out of it. Yea, they are openly advocate both by the pulpit and the press, but then such as connected themselves with these heathenish clubs, whether they were called odd fellows, friendly odds, druids, or loyal Bristons, were admonished. And if they did not separate themselves from all such, they were expelled from the church. As to masonry, it was not knowingly tolerated for a moment, but was denounced as the present of the entire corrupt offspring. Verily, Methodism was or is sadly at fault. This, however, is readily cannot fail to see, namely that the anti-Masonic Methodists of the present day are the true Wesleyans, and that Masonic Methodists are the degenerate offspring. It is not possible even for Masonic cunning to evade this conclusion. Mr. Stanley first addressed the societies under his care and then published his address with the introduction in the Noble Odd magazine, which claimed to be a communication of the American continuation of the American magazine. My fault. The whole is so good, we will give it entire. An address to the members of certain lodges. To the editor of the Methodist magazine. Dear sir, various are the means which are employed to produce degeneracy in the hearts and to confirm the world of their present state and alienation from God. One of the principal engines employed for these purposes is this neighborhood, is this heathenist association, variously modified and known by the names of Druid, Loyal Briston, Nelsians, Friendly Odds, Odd Fellows, and Company. Their general character is the same. They are all different species of the same genus and are all intended to promote Ale House convivially, to revive ancient heathenism and to plunge those who live in the 19th century into all the ignorance and barbarism of pagan Britain, when druids were priests and demons were object of religious worship. So as you listen right here, as you could see, the plan was to make you ignorant and more while it's acting like it's there to give you real knowledge. It was to take you away from one belief system and actually indoctrinate you into another. As we pay attention, we could see it happening in today's time. So this is nothing, you know, of a lie. That's what I'm saying. We can look and see the school system. We hear the arguments. We see the promotion of, you know, the keyboard crew, you know, the Smash keyboard crew, the Rainbow crew. We see these stuff and we see it's still piggybacking off of old things, meaning us. You know, we the old things. These the imitation of masonry, which may be considered the parent institution, it is, have assumed the name of lodges. It is deeply to be lamented that several members of the religious societies have, from a hope of temporal gain, entered these to their own injury and to the great dishonor of religion. Several months since, our preachers in two neighboring circuits excluded from the societies all those persons who belong to those lodges. Many dissentiment ministers have done the same. We in this circuit thought it our indispensable duty to follow their good example, preparatory to which I delivered the following address in a society meeting at T, the principal seat of the evil in this circuit. But the evil is not confined to these parts. From a list of the United Lodges of Druids for the year 1808, which list is now before me, it appears that the number of them then was 29. They then existed in London, Rothenthal, Greenwich, Windsor, Margaret, Exbridge, Reading, Bath, Bristol, Braintree, Coleridge, Salisbury, Ipswich, Brimsham, Dudley, Coventry, and at the Bermudas in France. At that time, some of these lodges contained from 900 to 1,000 members. Since then, the members both of lodges and members have, I understand, considerably increased. And since then, the Royal Bristol and Nelsix have been established and are increasingly rapid. Now, you wonder, would that be the, you know, the York right? You know, to stop the process of the plague in these parts was the object I had in view in composing and delivering the following address. And to prevent it spreading in other places, and my only object is requesting a speedy insertion in your youthful magazine. I am affectionately yours, J. Stanley. Dudley, October 18th, 1811. An address to the members of those lodges called Druids, Friendly Odds, Odd Fellows, and Company, delivered on Sunday, October 20th, 1811 at T at Stratford, Staffordshire, right? I have long felt an inclination to address the members of those clubs and associations called Druids and Company, which in imitation of Masonry have assumed the name of lodges. As many of you belong to one or other of these, perhaps I cannot have a more favorable opportunity than the present for this address. Let me entreat you to hear without prejudice. For what I shall say is not intended to give any offense, though perhaps it may occasion a little pain. Believe me, my heart desires a prayer to God is that you may all be saved. I shall beg leave to make a few and put a few observations on the inductory rights and oaths, the meetings and general tendencies of such lodges. First, the introductory rites. What are they? They are such as cannot fail to excite. Astronomers' pity or disgust is ever intelligent and poised minds. A person about to be made a member of one of these lodges is first blindfolded in a neighboring apartment and led into the lodge. Then he has a chain put around his neck, after which he is conducted to the archdruid, whose office it is to administer the oath. And some of the lodges, the administration is performed by the right hand supporter, who wears an honorable ugly mask, who is prodigiously largely pair of spectacles. The person receives the oath kneeling upon his right knee. And in the meantime, something is burning which throws a ghastly hue over every person and thing in the place. And the newly created member, when the bandage is removed from his eyes, which is done as soon as the oath is administered, views all with astonishment and honor. There are other things which are equally ridiculous. All this is utterly unchristian. Jesus Christ came not to blindfold those who could see, but to give sight to the blind and light to those who sit in darkness. He came not to chain mankind, but to proclaim liberty to the captive, not to make his creatures resemble fiends and sepulchres, but to transform them into his own image. All this is rude imitation of ancient heathenism. The Spirit of God is uniform in his operation. So also is the spirit of the heathenism. Heathenism had its mysteries. Persons were initiated into these and the dark, and concerning them, the apostles say it was the shame even to speak. And the initiated person, it is well known, was bound to secrecy. What a reasonable. By these means, the prince of darkness formerly carried on his fraternal purpose, and by these he is endeavoring to build up his kingdom in this and other places at present time. Now, Asmodeus and all of that we have addressed, right, with the Satanist religion. I believe That's the name of the show. If not, I'll have it and I'll put it up there. The show where we talk about, Lilith and all of these things and how this system is coming into play by building a new government structure, right? Because that's all it really is. Secondly, consider the oath. It is an oath of secrecy and is altogether illegal, irregular, irreligious, and absurd. One, it is illegal. According to the law of our country, no person has a right to administer an oath but a magistrate or some officer appointed by government. But your archdruids and most notable grands, or by whatever means you call them, are not appointed by government. Yes, they are. Every time they administer an oath, they break the law of their country. Yes, that is true, but this law in this government is above this country and government, right? To subject themselves is a legal persecution. Now, every Christian is bound to obey the laws of his country. That's true. To be subject as the apostles expresses it. And every ordinance of man for the Lord's sake, except where these obedience or laws interfere with the duties to God. But the prohibition of unqualified persons to administer oaths does not at all interfere with our duties to God. And you know that when you pledge allegiance to these gangs and all of that, you are taking these oaths to these things, right? So that you're no longer having a duty to God or whatever belief. Now your duties is to these organizations. Therefore, such persons to administer oaths is to act in direct opposition to the apostles' doctrines and is consequently sinful in the sight of God. It is irreligious. An oath is a solemn appeal to God for the truth of what we affirm. He and should only be made on important occasions. On every ordinary occasion, the doctrine of our Lord and his apostles is, let your ye be ye and your nay, nay. On every such occasion, he absolutely forbids all swearing. Swear not at all. Solomon appears to God on trivial occasions, indicates a want of reverence, and evidently tends to remove that awful sense of the majesty of the divine being, which ought continually to influence the human mind, this system. So we understand it is a psychology. Did the occasion justify it? You might, were it legal, swear by the Lord, but in some of your lodges you do not swear by the Lord, but by honor, truth, justice, virtue, and etc. This is downright adultery, heathenness, unmarked. For what in honor, truth, and company but the God of the heathen? I hesitate not to say that such swearing is as complete an apostasy from God as when Israel forsook the Lord and bowed a knee to bow to Moloch or to Ashithi, right? 3. It is absurd to swear that you will keep that secret which shall be committed to you. This indeed is taking a leap in the dark. This is worse than submitting to the bound with a chain. What is it that you are to keep secret? Before you keep an oath, you know nothing of the secret. It may for anything, nothing of the before you take the oath, you know nothing of the secret. It may, for anything you can then know, be something that ought not be kept secret, but be made known. You know, like your promise, you're not gonna say nothing, and putting you in that situation. Some situations you'd be like, I don't know, I should have not, I should have promised, to to keep that. Me, I always been a raw dude. So I never, like you would just assume that that I was with the bullshit. You know what I'm saying? Because I was with the bullshit, but I wasn't with the bullshit. It's hard to explain. I was with the nonsense, but I wasn't with it enough for me to be indoctrinated into this stuff right here. I was a revolutionist. So being a revolutionist, I saw like Black Panthers and all that, not knowing that they, the understanding of communism at the time. Now I understand the complexity and the vastness of just that alone, right? And how I can put that into understanding of Freemasonry, Leninism, Marxism, and these type of things, and see it being played on our people. So at the time, of being young, I didn't know that part. So I respected the Panthers and still do, the energy and the effort that they put in. But I always remind people that that's where I draw the line, because I feel that they were duped, hoodwinked into that system, just like other organizations as well, right? Okay. Now should now okay goes it may for anything you can then know be something that ought not to be kept a secret, but be made known. Now, should it turn out to be something which ought to be made known, to what a dilemma must you reduce? Should you keep the secret? Right? You should act contrary to the convictions of your mind, and you should reveal it. You would perjure yourself. That's why certain people, like, I keep a distance from, because it's like you keep trying to get me, to be bound to the nonsense, especially when everybody is being used indirectly, right? And, sooner or later, that comes to an end, right? Dilemmas must be reduced. Should you keep the secret, you would act contrary to the convictions of your mind. And should you reveal it, you would perjure yourself. I do not assert that the secret possesses this character, but I do assert that it may, for anything when you take the oath. I said it in oaths of secrecy, but why secrecy? The thing must be either good or bad, beneficial or hurtful. If the latter, certainly persons professing Christianity should have nothing to do with it. They should have no worship with the fruitful work of darkness, but rather reprove them. But if the former, instead of secrecy, there should be publicity, ever and vice may correct the shade, but truth and righteousness shine forth and challenge investigation. Christ is the light of the world, and Christians are the light of and Christians are as lights in dark places and are commanded to let their light shine before men. Right. Let me say something, like, because as I'm reading this, I don't want somebody to confuse me with Christianity, anything to do with the Julian religion. I'm not a white worshiper. So I know who Julius Caesar, aka Jesus Christ, is. I know that the cross represents the sword. So, like, for me, I'm not under that banner, and I'm not under the satanic banner, the counter of them, right? Because I'm not into the LBG community. I'm not into teaching my kids, that and trans and all of that stuff. So no, I'm not in to the Masonic system, for those reasons, right? So I'm not, I'm, I would say I would fall under the atheist banner, but I know what the science of God is. So I cannot be an atheist because an atheist doesn't believe in God. So I understand the science of God, but do I apply to the concepts of what society has attributed to God? No, I don't. And so that's where we would have a conflict, because not only do I not follow the Christian or the white man, right? I don't follow the Arab with the with Judaism and Abrahamic religions and all of that either. So I don't worship their deads. I have my own dead people I could worship. I don't worship them. I honor them for what they have taught me and allowed me to be able to come here now and give this information to you. You see what I'm saying? So I don't worship. I honor. I honor certain people, and that's the case, right? Christ is the light of the world, and Christians are the light in the dark place, and are commanded to let their light shine before men. The apostles never affected secrecy. They said, renounce the hidden things of dishonesty, not walking in craftiness, but by manifestation of the truth, commanding ourselves and every man conscience in the sight of God. But your truth, be it good or bad, is not like theirs, for it is not manifested but hidden. Thirdly, considered the meeting. Like all other associations, you hold regular meetings for the transitions and of the business of your society. It comes in some things, however, you differ from other particulars in the article of dress and singing. A finer subject is saturated. I have seldom met with than the antique and dig dignified appearance which some of you affect. Who could have thought that Christian men would have been so much in love with ancient Druid men who sacrificed human victims as not only to assume their name, but Christians have done that same thing too, and this is what Freemasonry is doing when you look at the different sacrifices with us. In the urban community was large. You know what I'm saying? We can look at the sacrifices that they made, that we have been the greatest sacrifice to this cause. That's why I say we must abandon the whole thing. But it's hard because these people, my people, have been affected mentally with the poison, right? So the poison of being engulfed in that world. They don't even know how to think outside of that world. So it's an affection psychologically, right? I told you, this is a psychological game. So you would have to be psychologically strong in order to see what is going on. I've always been keen. As a child, my number one show was um Fall God, Colt Seaver, right? Because he was, behind the scenes. When you looked at the show, you understood the workings of movies and stuff like that. So that's me, as a child. Like, so, my aunt, I remember asking me what I wanted to be as a kid, and remember telling her I wanted to be a stuntman. Not necessarily Colt Seaver, but I wanted to be in a place where I could see the background workings. You know what I'm saying? Where I could see it, what was really happening, pardon me taking off my brace, right? The inner workings of things, not just, the show itself. I didn't mind looking at the show from backstage. I didn't need to know. I seen it every day in rehearsal. I saw them go through the whole show many a times in the front watching it. I don't need to be there because I need to, I'd rather know the complete mechanism of how this works, from the director to the writer, you know what I mean? Everything, on, the set director, just how it works. And so that's how I was able to figure out, this system of Freemasonry by always having a keen eye for these workings, as we say, right? So affiliated. Who can have thought that Christian men would, Druids, human victims, Christianity, um, men sacrificing victims as not only to assume their name, but also to imitate their appearance by adding to their Christian face the bread of a goat or of some other animal, the beard of a goat or some other animal. And who could have imagined that any of the pains poor brethren would have been so fascinated with the charms of greatness as to throw away their hard-earned money upon medals, scarves, and robes somewhat resembling the vestment of heathen priests. But the subject is too serious for satire. In other societies, there may be song singing, but in yours, there must, according to one of your rules, the song called God Save the King must finish the long hours. In addition, this, the fraternal frequently sing rule Britannia, they have also their song of initiation, which was sung on the creation of every new member. To the loyalty of the national song, there can be no objection. But is there none to other and the association can you join with drunkards and debaucheries in a public house, even in singing God Save the King? Is this abstaining from the appearance of evil, or is it not rather giving your sanctions to a custom which is pregnant with incalculable mischief? Finally, consider the general tendencies of your meeting. It would require no greater depth of preparation antecedently to the knowledge of actual effects produced by such associations to calculate with the shrewdness approaching to certainty. I would not say that it is impossible for good men to mix with a host of ungodly men at a public house, to fear them, sing songs, and appear to be united in affection to them, regularly addressing each other by the appellations of brother, without losing some degree of spiritual good. You might safely say so, but I do say it is a difficulty nearly approaching to an absolute impossibility. Can a man take a fire in his bosom and his clothes not be burnt? And pray that you may not be led into temptation, right? Because that's how it works, the temptation. But every time you mix these, you act in direct opposition to the spirit of this prayer. When you indeed call in the order of providence and attend such meetings, you might then, with coincidence, expect that the God of all grace would keep you from evil. But to rush into danger and expect it to be preserved is mad presumptions. One of the things supposed above is not supposedly, namely this: were you called in the order of providence to attend such meetings? God's providence is never opposed to God's word, but God's word positively forbid the thing here supposed. See first Psalms, Proverbs 4:14-15, Second Chronicles 6:14-18. But we are no longer left to conjure as to the efforts of such association. These effects are already visible. The tree has brought forth fruit, by which fruit we know the tree to be bad. Formerly you were diligent in your attendance of the meaning of grace. Now many of you are negligent. Formerly you loved your preachers, profited by their ministries, and delighted in their company. But now, through you hear us, you cannot receive our doctrine, because forsooth everything we say is personal. If we preach on separation from the world and sin, woe be to us. Even some of our texts are objected to as being opposed to the lodges. prophecy smooth things, tell us that we may continue in the lodge, join with drunkards and whoremongers, and neglect many of the ordinance of God, and yet be good. Christians, this at present seems to be your language, but we will not tell you any such thing. Whether you will receive it or not, we will preach the whole counsel of God and be pure from the blood of all men. He that walketh with wise men shall be wise, but a companion of fools shall be destroyed. Formerly you considered it your highest honor to be members of the religious society of a religious society. You said, this people shall be my people, and their God my God. And if I fought thee, O Jesus, O Jerusalem, let my right hand forget her cunning. If I do not remember thee, let my tongue cleave to the roof of my mouth. If I do not prefer Jerusalem above the chief joy, but now you prefer the company of song singers. Now some of you say, if you cannot be members of both society, we will continue in the lodges. Unhappy men, you are preparing work for repentance. In a little time, God will dislodge us all. And now, and how, thank you, will you then approve of your present choice? What? Prefer darkness to light, be loud to Christ? You cannot serve both. Choose ye this day whom ye serve. Now observe, this faithful pastor only had a glimpse of the inside of the side chamber of the Masonic Lodge. Yet he pronounced the whole particular rite oath, meeting in general tendency and utterly Christian heathenness and distress of the world of a word, thoroughly bad both in principle and tendency, so much so that those who were once amiable members of God's church and happy in the enjoyment of religion were so perverted after joining those secret societies that they were not only alienated from their pastor, but objected both to the sacred text and to the sermon preached from it, and preferred the lodge to the church which they once loved. Hence, he does not hesitate to declare that the invention is one of principal injury employed to produce degeneracy in the heart and to confirm the world to their present state of alienation from God. As to the oath, he asserts that they are illegal, irregular, and absurd, yea, heathenism, unmasked, and as he proceeded, his holy indignation increases, so that he adds, I hesitate not to say that such swearing is a complete and hypocrisy from God. And when Israel forsook the Lord and bowed the knee to Moloch and Ashereth, hence the dueled men did not leave those vile associations after this fateful instruction. He and his faithful colleagues applied the discipline and excluded them from church. Here the Methodist as it was, here it ye degenerate offering who are crowding into temples still more heathenish than were those, and yet still call themselves Methodists, yea, ye Methodist preachers, right? I'm gonna stop right here just to, give a shout out to my book, Street Scouts, Knock 'em Out the Box, which is available on Amazon Books, Lulu, and many other platforms. I also want to say, hit the like, the subscribe, and the notification bell so you can be notified whenever new content is being uploaded. Let me hit my little button there so you can see that, right? And then you see my thumb, right? See the thumb right there? Oh, I missed it. Okay. Methodist preachers. All right. I only got 2 more pages anyway. Right. Again, if Jacob Stanley led thus to write and speak after obtaining a glance into the side chambers, what would he have said if he had been permitted to look in the Masonic temple itself and witness the adultery and blasphemy of the knights, prince, kings, sovereigns, and sovereigns of sovereigns? What would he have said on beholding in that assembly men calling themselves ministers of the gospel, and amongst them hosts of men calling themselves Methodist preachers? If a site of masonry is embroidered, thus provoke the holy indignation of Mr. Stanley, what would have been his indignation had he seen the monster full grown, as now seen in what are called knights, adepts, Knights of the Golden Circle, Ku Klux, and company. What would have been his indignation had he heard, as I have, the Methodist preacher assert, if William Morgan was abducted, carried away under cover of night, concealed in a magazine, partly poisoned, partly bled to death, and finally sunk in the depths of the Nigeria river, right, by 3 Masonic murderers. One more than justice was done him. If no more than justice was done him, if his indignations was so great when he saw his members so strangely alienated by entering the side chambers, what would have been his indignation had he witnessed such perversions as the above? The Methodist preacher asserting that in an instant of the most horrible midnight murders is naked justice. Can anything exceed this but just such as the influence of masonry? And this is the system that is now controlling our pulpit, our presses in our courts, our justice, so called. Will not God visit for these things? The reader must not fail to observe that the Masonic Methodist is corrupting and swindling was then just what it is now, namely by leading men into its side chamber, hence into its temple, and then onward and downward from degree to degree till that pit is reached, whence the conspiracy took its rise. When they formed various auxiliary societies known by various names as friendly odds, Gnostics, Druids, and company, and there gave them such Masonic doses that they were willing to receive. And when they became sufficiently intoxicated, they were led into the grand temple, where they were progressed more rapidly, and in an incredibly short time, retreat was neither desired nor possible. Just so now, auxiliary secret societies are formed all over the country, known by various names as Sons, Templars, and company. We'll say, Moors, Nation of Islam, we'll say Nubians, we'll say Bloods, Crips, Israelites, right? And all professionally for the good of the dupes, whose money, influence, and ruin are sought by the leading conspirators. And shall we recognize such men as being good Christians? Let them do this who can. I cannot. To do is so obviously to reject the Bible, which from Genesis to Revelation teaches just the contrary. All right, so that should be it right there. That was the end of chapter 12. Like I said, I'm Juice Wanna. This is Old George Gritty, right? We was just reading Keys to Freemasonry and Secret Chambers, right? And this is, basically exposing, the science of Freemasonry, but he's giving it with the view of a Christian and not revealing the truth about Christianity itself. So me, I'm neither one. I'm not a Christian, nor am I into Freemasonry, but I am a revolutionist. So, I must inform the people. So like I said, I'm up out of here. Thank you for watching. This is Old George Gritty. Peace.